lymphoblastic lymphoma, which is a rare type of cancer that is generally found in the lymph nodes, and mine was in the femur bone. And this was 2 years ago, November 27th, 2000, and it is a pretty scary experience, to say the least. That's probably the biggest understatement of all. I am healthy now, thank God, doing as well as can be expected under the circumstances. I'm still on maintenance phase of the protocol, which is about another 10 more months of chemotherapy. But the long and the short of it is that I went through pretty intense daily chemotherapy, very aggressive protocol. Dr. Diggy and Dr. Meddy, who I attribute to pretty much saving my life and helping me get through the most disgusting ordeal. They worked with a Dr. Yuen in Stanford, and they were amazing, and it is because of them and the support of my family and friends that I believe that I'm here today, and obviously attributed, I believe, somewhat and mostly to God and the prayers that everyone has been praying for me. So I'm going to let my dad, Richard Farago, go ahead and start asking me some questions, and then we'll introduce Todd Peterson as well.
Well, I guess the best way to start is to ask you, because we were right in the middle of it from the very beginning, obviously, but you started having pains in your left femur, right above the knee, maybe, what, 2.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, you basically ignored it, and then at one point it really got relatively significant, and you decided then to, and why don't you tell the people the procedure that you went through, because I think you went through about 3 or 4 stages before you were diagnosed with the cancer.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most frustrating parts of all, not knowing that there was something wrong. But at 20, I'm 24 now, I was 22 at the time, you don't think you could ever in a million years have cancer. And so I thought that perhaps I was just having a leg muscle spasm, maybe attributed to not working out as much as I should, because I'm not a big fan of the gym, unfortunately, and I thought perhaps that's what it was, and just probably some muscle spasm, but it just was too common and there was too many occurrences. So I thought to myself, perhaps it's something more. So after my parents and my friends were saying, all right, enough complaining about the leg, go get an x-ray. I did that, and I got an x-ray. They just said that it was just a little discoloration in the bone. So all that came back on the x-ray, it looked pretty much as if there wasn't anything horribly wrong, but they were a little suspicious, so they said, go ahead and get another x-ray done and perhaps an MRI, go to a bone specialist. So I did that, went to the bone specialist, San Francisco, and had an MRI and a CAT scan, and came up with some hot spots, they called it, and just in the leg only. And from hot spots, they were kind of able to determine that I needed to have a biopsy done immediately. So I went to San Francisco and had a specialist perform a surgery where they cut. I heard that it would be just about a 3-inch scar on my leg, and I, of course, was very upset to hear that I would be having a scar that size, and I was very saddened. But at that age, you know, at that age, I'm still a little vain at times, and I'm worried about scars or marks, and I didn't think it could be anything, so why should I get a scar in my leg for something that was nothing? Well, obviously, I didn't even want to take the time off from work to go. I didn't want to waste my time, my money on something that was nothing. Thank God that I did, because I caught this cancer, which turned out to be malignant. And still weird to say that, because it's hard to believe that I went through that. But basically, I guess they told my parents and my boyfriend at the time that it was malignant before I knew, because he knew as soon as he performed the biopsy. So they all knew, and I was coming to after the surgery, and they didn't tell me yet, and I found out through my parents that it was malignant, and I would have to immediately start chemotherapy. No time, no break, no going back to San Diego where my friends and my life was. I had graduated from UCSD, and I was working in San Diego. I left my whole life there, and I immediately started chemotherapy, a very aggressive protocol. So
you might want to share with the people listening, God forbid that anybody has something either similar or a cancer of a different nature, the reluctance that you had. I mean, when they told you 6 months you were going to have to put your life on hold for 6 months, which it turned out to be over 2 years, you really went ballistic.
Yeah, I lost it and cried a lot. I went through a phase, a little denial and a little bit of frustration, the why me phase, the angry at God phase, the, you know, this can't be happening to me, this is only on television. But definitely it does happen to people you know, people that you love, and sometimes it hits home a lot closer than you'd like to imagine. When they told me in Stanford the protocol would be so severe that I would not be able to function on my own, that I would have to have my parents do everything for me, I thought it was a little bit ridiculous, and I didn't really believe it because I feel like I'm a very strong individual and I could take care of myself, but I had no idea. I underestimated the extent to which this disease and the chemotherapy and the radiation and everything that happens to you, you can't eat yourself, you can't clean yourself, you can't brush your own teeth, you can't, the side effects are so severe that you can't swallow, you have to get TPN, which is total parental nutrition. A lot of the time I was 60 days in the hospital, then I was home for 2 weeks getting it in the clinic, the chemo. Then I was home, back in the hospital for another month, then I was back at home, back and forth for, was it a year? And then I had phases where they had to stop the chemo because it got so bad that they just bring you to the brink of killing you to save your life. So I got so sick that the chemo, they had to stop the chemo for a week or two. And that frustrated me because for me that meant lengthening the time that I would be away from my friends and my boyfriend in San Diego and everything that I loved so much there. So that was hard for me as well.
Now, I know the whole ordeal was an ordeal, without a doubt. Looking back, is there anything in particular that was, in your mind, the worst phase of it? I mean, we saw you there in the hospital, writhing in pain, and no hair in your head and your face all puffed up. No eyebrows. But, I mean, and so the physical was devastating itself, but I also remember that you pretty much handled the physical relatively well, and that you were much more upset, at least initially, until you went into the treatment, with the concern that you were going to lose your hair, that you were going to be, you know, you were going to be out of the loop for a while. Why don't you address that?
That's hard for me because to find out as a girl, not that it's easier for a guy, but girls are more into their hair and makeup and appearances, and that was really tough on me. I always, you know, took pride in how I looked, and to find out that I would really lose my hair. My chemo would make me be bald. I would have no eyebrows, no lashes. I've been complimented on my eyelashes being so long. It's hard as a girl to lose that part of the physical aspect, to look at pictures and to see that you used to look really nice and you don't anymore. That was tough. But the greatest part of all is to know that you can get through that and to be okay again. I guess that's a big part of why I'm here today, and what I really want to let everyone know, that has anyone in their family who has cancer or knows anyone, that when it's not terminal, which God forbid is the worst, is so hard to accept. In my case, it wasn't. And the good news was that it was curable. But it was the most aggressive protocol, and while you're going through it, it really doesn't help to hear people tell you, you're going to be okay, you're going to live, because I know that was my dad's thing, to know that I was going to be cured. And that's all he focused on, was knowing that I would be well. And for me, it didn't really, it was great, not that it wasn't good to know I'm going to be cured, that was wonderful, but it doesn't help while you're going through the pain and torture to know, yeah, your hair's going to come back again, and yeah, you will live again. You're suffering. It doesn't really help. So, and I know that there was a lot of times that was hard for me. You know, and I have to admit, I'm not a very religious person. I wasn't. Some people grow closer to God, some people grow further apart. For me, I was angry at God for a long time. I definitely wasn't able to pray as much. Thank God I had people around me praying, but I went through that phase where I was so angry, and my dad got a little bit closer with God, and really, we had an opposite effect kind of thing, because I was just frustrated, and he would tell me, you know, Laura, you should be grateful. You live in a country where you can have people take care of you, and in the hospital you have the drugs, you have the doctors, you have everything you need to be well, and, you know, be grateful. You know, God brought that to you. God brought you the doctors and the medicines, etc., and I would just say, who brought the cancer? Because I was so angry, and now I know that it wasn't God who brought me the cancer. I understand that now, but like I said, when you're going through it, it doesn't help too much. So maybe just, you know, reflecting on that is difficult.
I'm sure that's the case because we lived with it with you. Of course, you went through the major impact and the initial impact by yourself. But was there anything in retrospect that you grabbed onto during this year and a half or two that, I can't use the expression made you feel better because that's ludicrous, but was there anything that you grabbed onto that allowed you at least to get through it?
Yeah, I have to say that if it wasn't for my parents and my friends, in my family, my aunt and uncle, my cousin Dan, my ex-boyfriend now, Ted Hannock, and a whole bunch of supportive girlfriends, Amber Nailu and Misty Nguyen, and a whole bunch of people who were there for me, I don't think that it would have been as easy to get through. I wouldn't say that I'd make it. I wouldn't say that I'm not strong enough to have done it on my own. But I definitely remember thinking, I believe it was the day that I had the biopsy done and I was in the hospital and you were sitting there. My parents were with me every night I was in the hospital. And they were just, I looked at them and I go, how do people do this without the supportive family and those people who love them? So it's definitely, I can't say that I could have survived it without people who are there to, even when you don't want to talk to anyone. And I pushed everyone away. I pushed everyone away, including, you know, my ex-boyfriend and my girlfriends and anyone who wanted to get close to me. I didn't want them to see me or know anything about what I was going through in such detail. I mean, I would email people and give them lots of details, actually, on days when I felt up to it. But there were some times when I shut off the world. I didn't want anyone to have to know until I was better. And then they could come back into my life again. Because I just thought that once I was better, my life would resume. But it just doesn't happen that quickly. You don't pick up where you left off as much as I'd like to have thought that you do. I went through a deep depression that was pretty severe. That emotional aspect of it was almost harder for me than the physical side effects, which were pretty disgusting. I have to say, I mean, the depression was just hard to explain to people because you're healthy, you're done with the chemo, your hair is coming back, you're going to live, but you're unhappy, you're still sad, you're going through the leftover effects of what you didn't deal with when you were too sick to deal with it, I guess.
Well, I can understand that. As a matter of fact, I have to, I guess, basically apologize, although I've already done it numerous times to you, that I didn't, that, and what you said is true. I focused initially and exclusively on the fact that you were going to live. That was the only thing that really mattered to me. But I guess I would advise parents to try to understand. It's very difficult that it's not you going through it. It's scary. It's horrendous. And people came out of the woodwork to help us. Friends, relatives, doctors, nurses, everyone. Everybody was so wonderful. And you might say something about the necessity, not the necessity, but the desire to somewhere along the line pay back.
Definitely. That's something that I'm hoping to do now that I'm well, now that I feel that I can, whether it be counsel people who've had cancer, in any way talk to people who would like to know anything about what I've gone through, how I can help them, if there's anything that I can do.
In that same vein, I think maybe you want to get Todd out here to talk about some of the things that are preventative from the standpoint of nutrition, etc. So let me bow out, and you introduce Todd, and he'll take it from here.
Thanks, Dad. Love you.
Love you.